four-time Emmy-nominated producer, Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
My brother.
Frankie boy, my brother indeed. How you doing, pal?
Happy New Year, January 2nd. How are you today?
January 2nd. Happy New Year's, right. We're glad to put this one in the books, huh? Glad to see this one go down the drain.
What time did you go to bed last night?
Man, it used to be my normal routine on New Year's Eve. Of course, I always had to work because I had a saloon, so it was a busy night. But I'd always get an 8-ball of Coke, 2 bottles of champagne, and I'd leave them, for after the night was over, because my partying would begin about 4:30 in the morning after we threw everybody out. Then I'd start drinking, and then I'd go out to the after-hours clubs, because in the Bronx there was always plenty of clubs, maybe 3 or 4 clubs that were open all night long.
Billy.
Yes.
What time did you go to bed last night? Was the question.
10:30.
I beat you by a half an hour. 10 o'clock, I was in bed.
It's an awful thing. How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, I celebrated. I watched the ball drop in New York at 9 o'clock. That's how my New Year started.
But you made it to the ball. Anyway, that's not too bad.
Derek, what time did you go to bed last night?
Well, I remember a story that Billy told about what he would do on New Year. So I decided to get a 3 bottles of champagne and an 8-ball of cocaine, and I have not gone to sleep yet. Just kidding.
You're going to turn into a closet drinker. Those are dangerous. You got to get out. If you're going to drink, you got to drink out. The closet drinkers are the dangerous ones.
Yeah.
But you know what? The big day was New Year's Day. That was the day all the bar owners, all the professionals, all the waitresses would be out in all the saloons. So we drink all day. That was my favorite day of the year, New Year's Day, not New Year's Eve. But and listen, we're glad to flush this last year. Everybody's glad to get rid of this one. I just hope that the year ahead is going to be what their promises, with the vaccine and everything, and people are going to loosen up. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Let me tell the audience what we're doing. This is a January 2nd show, obviously, and this is going to be our last Saturday show because effective on Wednesday, this Wednesday on January 6th, we're going to move the show to afternoons on Wednesdays. So we feel that since we're no longer trying to go live, we'll be shooting tape delay. That'll give Derek a little bit of opportunity to clean up our act a little bit, and we think it'll be better. So if we can ask you guys to write in on January 6th with your questions and comments, we can address them at that time. So how about that, Billy?
It's a public service announcement from Frank Pace, producer extraordinaire.
Yeah.
They're sending out the checks, man. Checks are coming out supposedly. McConnell blocked the 2,000, but they're supposed to be sending out immediate relief, which is a blessing for these. Nobody wants to walk around the United States of America and see people all over the streets homeless, man. People start getting evicted. It's going to be bad news.
Yeah, they're buying Beverly Hills with $600.
Yeah, some hope. $600 in Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah.
You know what I think, Frank? I swear to God. McConnell, and this just ain't McConnell. I could go with the Democrats, too. Dianne Feinstein. She's 87 years old. Grassley's 86 years old. I mean, can you imagine if somebody sent you as a producer? We're sending you over a guy, Frank, from the union. The union sent this guy over, put him to work. He's 101. When did these guys get out? I mean, what is enough? Both sides of the aisle. They're out of touch. It's ridiculous. I remember Strom Thurmond. You remember that guy from South Carolina, Strom Thurmond?
Yep.
He was 102 years old and still in office. 102.
That's still racist. And still a racist.
Oh, unbelievable racist. But that's the South. And Derek can verify this. I mean, Derek's from Mississippi. And I'm not saying that the North ain't corrupt or anything else. It's obvious. Look, you got two guys running for Senate, one guy and a woman running for Senate in South Carolina now, right? Both of them insider trading Republicans, both of them against any kind of relief. I'm definitely against this. All of a sudden now they want to send out $2,000. I wonder what's changed. Come on. But the South is so. When I first got to South Carolina, I just got out of basic training. I was 19 years old. I asked for worldwide. Send me anywhere in the world. I wanted to see the world. That was my whole reason for joining the service. Even Vietnam. I volunteered for anything. Just send me. I want to see the world. Well, the Air Force, in their wisdom, sent me to Charleston, South Carolina. And there's a sign entering Charleston: 200 years of history unmarred by progress. But I was a young kid, just a young kid. And I was astonished at the corruption because I was running around with a guy, really bright guy. His name was Ron Byers. And his father was the U.S. ambassador to Hong Kong. He was from Ohio. But he was also a wise guy. And I was running around. By wise guy, I mean he was a screw up. And that's why I guess we ran around together. We both liked to drink together and party. I wasn't doing a lot of partying in them days, but he got thrown out of the service. And he decided to become a pimp. He had two girls working for him in South Carolina. Now, let me just explain how corrupt Charleston, South Carolina is. At the time, the head of the Armed Services Committee was a guy named Mendel Rivers. He was a senator in South Carolina. Now, I didn't know this until Ron told me that he had to kick back from the whorehouse that his girlfriend worked in 25% to Mendel Rivers. The whole whorehouse had to kick back money to Mendel Rivers. All the bars in town had to kick back money to Mendel Rivers, right? So I would think, because he was the head of the Armed Services Committee, there's an Air Force base in Charleston. There's a Navy base in Charleston. There's the Citadel. There's a school in Charleston. Paris Island is only 70 miles away from Charleston. It's probably the most well-protected city in the whole United States. So consequently, there's got to be 10 men to every woman in Charleston. It's incredible. So all these B-girls, they used to call them B-girls, that worked in the bars and all the clubs that were bust-out clubs and all the whorehouses, they all kicked back to Mendel Rivers. So it was just one big mass of corruption. It was amazing to me. And unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with.
Like Mitch McConnell, only they're different kind of whores kicking back to him.
Exactly. Only they're different kinds of whores kicking back to him. Exactly. I told you that story when I was in New Orleans. I think I told you that Moon Landreau, this is going back in 1971, 72. Derek might remember Moon.
Mayor of Las Vegas.
Well, I think the mayor now is his grandson, I think, but he was the governor at the time. Moon Landreau. This is back in 71. And he got busted for taking a bribe.
A New Orleans governor got busted for taking a bribe?
Hard to believe. But the best was, I was in town here, and again, I was still naive. I was 70, they say 71, I was 23 years old, and I still sort of thought things might be on the level, But he got busted. This is the best. This is the coolest story. He got busted for taking a $50,000 bribe, and his defense in court, and he got off. This was his defense, and he got acquitted. He said, "How much was I supposed to have taken? $50,000. Shit. That guy couldn't even get past my secretary for $50,000. No way I would take a bribe for $50,000. It'd have to be at least $250,000. And everybody said, yeah, no way Moon would take a bribe that small. And he got off. That was his acquittal.
Yeah, well, you talk about racism in the South. I had a friend from Massachusetts in 1970 or so, and he was a black man. He was a black basketball player. And he said the difference between the North and the South is he felt safer in the South than he did in Boston. Because in the South, he said, "You know that they hate us." In the North, they pretend they like us. So anybody can turn on you at the moment's notice.
Covert racism.
Yep, yep.
Good point, Frank.
Yeah, you know what? When Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, and the only reason he got the Civil Rights Act passed at all was because of Kennedy's assassination, of the death of Kennedy. The first Civil Rights Act was in 1954, and Richard Russell, who was the head of the Senate at the time, who made Mitch McConnell look like a liberal, Richard Russell was an out-and-out racist, and had it not been for Jim Crow, he probably would have been president because nobody knew more about the Constitution than Richard Russell. But they objected to the Civil Rights Act. This is 1954. Now we're talking 9 years after blacks had fought in World War II, and sacrificed their lives in islands in the Pacific and the Tuskegee Airmen and everybody else. They objected to state on a states' rights basis that it shouldn't be a federal crime to lynch blacks in the South. And that's why it didn't get passed in 54. That's how backward we were in the South in 54.
You amaze me. You amaze me with the depth and the breadth of stuff you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, I know a
Agreed.
lot of useless information.
That's not useless. That's very helpful.
Why don't you now? I'll give you this. Why don't you recite the Gettysburg Address for me? 64 little words. Go.
I don't know if I could do the whole thing, but 7 years ago, our forefathers brought forth to this continent a new nation, conceived with liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. We are now engaged in the great Civil War, testing to see whether this nation or any nation so conceived or so dedicated can long endure. We are now met on a great battlefield of that war. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in the further sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. For the men who have died here have done a far more better job. There's a great line after that, and it basically says, people will quickly forget what is said here, but they'll long remember what was done here, which is actually the opposite of what happened. Because everybody remembers Lincoln's address, the Gettysburg Address, but not too many people can tell you about the war, the battle itself. But that's neither here. I mean,
I rest my case.
Yeah, it's
I rest my case.
it's quite amazing, and it's important. I think that a part of why we have so many issues in this country is because people don't have any depth of knowledge about anything. Everything is surface knowledge, if any knowledge at all. And once you start to, read books and understand the historical consequences of actions, then can you make decisions that have some kind of qualifying actions. Otherwise, if you don't know what happened in the past, you can't make good decisions in the future.
Without a doubt. I mean, Santayana said that, right? If we don't, we're condemned to repeat the mistakes of the past, unless we study history. Yeah. And I love history. And I especially period World War II past, on, because that affects us directly. I mean, I wasn't born too long after World War II, 1948. So, but I mean, it's disgusting when you think about people that have died to defend this country, and you don't pass the Civil Rights Act because it's the states' rights to be able to lynch somebody who's a different color. It's terrible. And when Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, he said, "I'm effectively writing off the South for my party for the next 50 years." But what he didn't know is he was also writing off a large portion of the North because, like Frank said, at least in the South, they let you know they're racist. I think the big problem is people equate people of color in the big cities, especially like in Chicago. And I don't know much about Chicago, but in New York, I can tell you for sure, when you go to poor neighborhoods in New York, that people where English is a second language, where they're poor, and usually they're people of color, whether it's brown, black, or whatever. And people equate that with with, well, they're poor because they don't lift themselves up by their bootstraps. Well, come on, man. In this country, if anything, it's proven lately, the amount of socialism that's going on in this country for the rich is insane. This last bill that they passed for COVID, $4 million for churches that don't pay taxes. Don't even get me started. I don't want to rant. I want to talk about something a little funnier about the South. I tell you, remember I told you in the beginning of the podcast that there was a lot of B girls, which are called bar girls, and a lot of whorehouses in Charleston. Now, I got there, I was 19 years old. Again, a recovering Catholic. I'm looking to bust out, because the girls in my neighborhood growing up, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 18. Actually, it was 19, because I grew up in an Irish neighborhood. And the Irish girls, we used to call them plainclothes nuns. It looked like they all looked like they had their legs on upside down. They all had table legs. And I remember, if you got a little touch pee-pee back then in 1964, it was like a big deal, if you grabbed a cold feel or something. But I didn't lose my virginity till 1967, and it was in Charleston. I was going out with a 33-year-old. I was 19, and I was going out with a 33-year-old country and western singer. And I was lucky to hook up with a chick 14 years older than me, because there had to be, I swear to God, 10 men to every woman. So I get to Charleston anyway after coming out of basic training. And the first thing I do, I got my $77 check, right? Because every 2 weeks we got $77. And I got my $77 check. I cash it. And I says, all right, baby, let me see what this town's got, right? And I'm thinking to myself, these goobers in South Carolina, man, I'm from New York. I'm going to make out like a raped ape here. Let me go get some women. Of course, I'm just a kid. I don't know shit. I think, who the hell I am. I'm not from New York. I'm from the Bronx, and I'm from a little neighborhood in the Bronx. Because you're not really from New York. I don't know about. I don't go down to Manhattan. But anyway, I get in a cab. I said to the cab driver, hey, pal, take me where the action is. He says to me, he says, that would be the Navy Strip. I says, great, take me down to the Navy Strip. So they take me down by the naval base. Now, of course, the old expression, he was spending money like a drunken sailor, comes from the fact that a guy is out at sea for 2.5 months. He's got 2.5 months worth to pay, and all he wants to do is get drunk and get laid. So he's coming in, and he's gonna decorate the mahogany. He's gonna have a good time, because he's probably going out to sea again in another month. So I get down by the Navy base. Unbeknownst to me, there's a strip of bars, but it's all bust-out joints. It's to relieve the guys in the Navy from their money as quickly as possible. But I don't know that. So I go walking into a bar. I order a beer. No sooner do I sit at the bar. This is like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. 19-year-old kid. I sit at the bar. I order a beer. One girl pops on next to me. Hey, handsome. Want a little company? I says, holy shit, what a town is this? This is great, right? I'm talking to her for about 2 minutes. Another girl comes sitting on my left. She goes, oh, man, I love the way you talk. She says, listen to the way you talk. You got such a cute way of talking. Where are you from? I said, I'm from the Bronx, New York. I'm like, I'm rolling now. I said, this is like, I'm living large. Well, what are you girls drinking? Let me buy you a drink. I love a champagne cocktail. Bartender serves them the drinks. I got $20 on the bar. She says, the bartender says, you have to put up another 20. I said, wait a minute, I'm only having a beer. How much do these champagne cocktails cost? She says, $12 a piece. I says, $12 a piece? Now, this is 1970, right? 1966.
Yeah, it's 2020 prices.
Yeah. So I says, wow, all right. So I put the other 20 up, because I figured it don't matter. I'm rolling here. These chicks are all over me. So finally, one girl says, why don't we take a booth? It's more comfortable. Now, I got my $76. An hour and a half, maybe a few hours later, I got about $8 left. And she's just caressing my leg enough to make me think there's a hope of something going on. And finally, she says to me, listen, I work here. I said, well, I kind of suspected that, because the champagne cocktails, of course, 7-Up. They're only 7-Up. It's a bust-out joint. So I said, I kind of suspected that. She goes, you know what? But I really like you. She goes, you're different. Now, I'm not allowed to leave here with you because my boss will get mad. But at 9 o'clock tonight, I get off. If you meet me at the Coffee Cup, which is 2 blocks away, I'll meet you. We'll go back to my place. We'll have a good time. I said, no sooner than she finished the sentence, boom, I was out the door, right? This is great. I'm going to meet this chick at 9 o'clock. Everything's great. Now I'm sitting in the Coffee Cup, and I'm waiting. It's 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9:30, 10 o'clock. No sign of the girl. Now I start looking out the window like a jerk, right? Maybe she's late. Maybe something happened. And then I notice that the whole place has got maybe 40 people in it. There's not a woman in the place. It's all guys.
It's unbelievable.
And they're all looking at the clock, and they're all looking out the window, you know. And then I realized that, you know what? I don't think this chick is coming. You know, I felt like the all-day sucker, you know. And it was a good, I tell you what, it was a good $60 lesson, a real good $60 lesson. Amazing. But that was Charleston, South Carolina, when I was there. And then, you know what? They still have the slave market up, too, and they still do, I believe. Derek, have you been to South Carolina in the last 20 years?
20 years, no.
They still have the slave market up downtown. That's still one of their historic landmarks.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a wild town. You know, it's crooked as can be.
So, Billy, let me ask you a question. Since you study history, if let's just say it's turned 2021 as it has. By the way, 2021 isn't any different than 2020 so far. But let's say it's turned 2041. How do you think history will review 2020?
That's a good question. I mean, from my perspective, of course, I don't think history is going to be kind to 2020. I don't think history is going to be kind to our government in 2020. I mean, what is there good to say? Well, what did we accomplish? I mean, we were the toast. You know, after World War II, we were the toast of the world.
Yeah, I know you're going to go into this again, but the toast of the world and the toast of black people are two different things. So again, we can't say we're the toast of the world because we're just not. It's no matter how you look at it. You know, I often say, you know, I had a guy I worked with who said 100 years, all new people. And that's true. In 100 years, to be all new people. But I often ask the question, in the year 2121, people will look back at us and say, how the hell did they live like that? How the hell could they have a pandemic like that? Because now you just take a pill and there's no such thing as cancer, or there's no such thing as whatever things we had to deal with. I mean, I don't know how we could have lived in 1921 under the current conditions. I was reading something the other day that when Washington was president, the average lifespan of the American male was 38 years old. That was remarkable to me. He was 58, and the average lifespan of the American male or the American female was 38. We've come such a long way. I can't imagine what progress we'll make in the next 100 years.
Look at the progress we've made since you've been alive. Things you've seen in your lifetime.
Yeah,
it's incredible. I mean, you know, when I was about 16, my father went back to Ireland, and I wanted to call him in Ireland. And to call him, no, I'm sorry, I was 18. I was in the Army. And I wanted to call my father in Ireland because it was the first time he went back to Ireland since he left it in 1950. So it was 1967. And the reason you don't go back, you know, the song Danny Boy is about a man leaving Ireland, and they call it the New York funeral, because once you go to New York, you're not coming back.
Right.
Because in them days, you went by boat, and you were never going to see your mother and father again. So Danny Boy is about when you come back and visit my grave, maybe, you know. So my father left in 50. He finally went back in 67 because his father was dying. So I'm in a base in Germany, and I want to call Ireland. It's a true story. I pick up the phone. I tell him I want to put a phone through Cork City. They connect me to Ostend, Belgium, from Stuttgart, Germany. From Ostend, they paste me through to London. From London, they patch me through again to Dublin. From Dublin, they patch me through again to Cork. And from Cork, actually, the number I had was the neighbor's house. And the neighbor had to go get my father from the house next door because they didn't have a phone yet. Now, you can dial somebody for free in Turkey if you want and and be face to face with them and have a free phone call. I mean, to me, that's all extraordinary.
And still, in this day, until you put on those headphones, you sound like you were walking through water, talking through water.
Sound like you were in Turkey.
Yeah,
but I mean, what you just said before about the average lifespan, how it's grown. When you think about, say, King Henry V or King Henry IV, whatever king, medieval king, the poorest guy in America, the poorest guy maybe on the planet, lives better than King Henry did.
Right.
I mean, we have electricity. We have I mean, it's astounding what science can do. Why people are adamant about not listening to scientists, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, I can't even spell physics. I'm barely spelling. Why would I not listen to a scientist? How do you know a little bit about science? You don't.
One thing that started in 2000 that you didn't know and that you know how to do is you know how to spell Fauci. Fauci.
Oh yeah. He could be definitely the man of the hour. I see. What's her name? What was the other chick's name that was Fauci?
Deborah Birx. Dr. Deborah
Birx. She resigned, right? She retired.
Yeah, I think she got forced into retirement.
I think. Yeah. She retired because
she didn't disavow our president.
Yeah.
What are you looking at your notes?
I'm looking at something that cracked me up. I had a comic the other day. I was on the phone with him. He was trying to write a bit about McDonald's in China, right? I'm segueing completely here because it's funny. To me, it's funny. You know what the hottest sandwich in McDonald's right now in China? Hotter than the Big Mac, hotter than any of the other garbage, the McRib or whatever else they sell. Is a Spam sandwich with Oreo cookies on top.
Oh my God!
I swear to God, it's a big hot item in China. Spam with Oreo cookies on it. And I don't know why I segued there, but it just happened.
And they're the most advanced economy in the world, right? Spam sandwich with Oreos on top.
I have a question before we transition off of that original topic. So, since you guys have a very comparative perspective, because you lived, for a few decades, what in terms of besides telephones, what amenities? What was your life experience when you were a kid? What amenities do you have now that you didn't have as a kid? Like just some really like outstanding things.
Computers.
Okay, computers. Excellent.
Yeah, without a doubt. The internet was even when they talked about the internet, and that's not maybe 15 years ago.
Okay.
I thought it was magic. I didn't think it could be done. I thought it was crazy.
Okay.
Well, cell phones go back. Let me see. In 1991, I was producing a movie called Babe Ruth in Cleveland. That was the first cell phone I had. 91. So that was 30 years ago.
Okay.
But I didn't really become a slave to my cell phone until like 2000 or so. So that really makes it, I was 50 years old at that time.
Right.
Do you think, when you said, that's an interesting noun you use, slave to my cell phone, they do sort of make us slaves to it, don't they? And this dinging thing, every time you get a notification, that forces you to look at it, whether you really don't want to look at it.
You can't turn it off,
I'm going to have to, because it's know where you are all the time. And I mean, look, the technology is amazing. It makes our life easier. Everybody uses credit cards. Nobody used credit cards 25, 30 years ago. It was cash for everything.
Yeah, that's true.
That's an announcement.
There was no credit card debt. We were not a nation in debt based on credit.
And you didn't pull up to a gas station and just stick a card in there. You had to pay it
In cash.
up or go inside.
Yep.
Television. What about television? Cable. I mean, I grew up, I don't know, Frank, I think I'm a couple of years older than you. There was 3 stations.
Well, there was more than 3. There were 3 networks. There were three
networks, excuse me. You're right.
Networks and 3 local stations. But you know what?
Well, we had CBS, ABC, and NBC, and then we had channel WPIX 11 and channel 9,
WOR 9, and whatever channel 13 was. And you know, when we were growing up, you know what at our house our remote consisted of? Change the channel, Frank. Change the channel, Frank.
Hey, you know what? I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to hold it up because Derek asked the question. I had sent away, remember I've often told you that I was 3 rows behind a guy who caught Maris' 61st homer, right? So a buddy of mine, I wanted to send him for Christmas, so I sent away, was on the internet, the actual newspaper when Roger Maris hit 61. Right? Because our picture is in the back. So I said, let me send away and send him a copy of this paper, just as, you know, because it's 1961, you know, and I said, he'll get a kick out of it. So I got 2, one for me and one for him. But while I'm looking at the paper, I mean, I'm looking through it, and it's pretty remarkable. You know, first of all, the newspaper cost 5 cents. That's number one. 5 cents for the newspaper. And this is where we got our information from. But there was no internet. I mean, there was no... Anything that was in the paper was pretty much gold. And I'll tell you something else. The news was the news. They didn't have 3 talking heads, come on, after they told you the news and told you what you just listened to. A guy came out, he read you the news. This is the news. This is what happened. Syria, bomb Lebanon, bing, 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 done. Now it's Syria, bomb Lebanon. Let me bring these 3 guys on to tell you what you just listened to. Right? I mean, if you listen to CNBC, it was the president's fault. He's an asshole. If you listen to Fox, best thing we ever could have done. We had to bomb them. You know, like it's just give us the information.
Yeah.
Just give us the information. Let us process it.
So let's go back to Derek's question though. So that's an interesting question, Derek. So cash money, that's a big difference.
Right.
The cost of things is a big difference. Okay. You know, Billy said the newspaper was 5 cents. I remember when it was 4 cents, and went up to 5 because that was a big deal. Credit cards were non-existent.
Right.
I remember
non-existent.
First credit card came, and I think credit cards were the beginning of our downfall because now everybody's, just put it on a credit card, put it on a credit card, put it on a credit card. We're a nation of debt.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm trying to teach my daughter is don't put everything on a credit card. It's sort of an old school. My grandmother used to say, if you can't pay cash, don't buy it.
Right.
I remember a great line, Jimmy Cagney, from the movie The Roaring Twenties. Remember the movie The Roaring Twenties? Sure. Great film, right? And Jimmy Cagney, of course, he's a palooka, and he's out of his depth, and he's in a real high society thing. And this guy says, "So, what do you think of Stalin's 5-year plan?" And Cagney goes, "Oh, I don't go for them installment thieves." He goes, "I pay cash for everything. I'm strictly cash."
It's just that's hilarious.
Let me ask you both a question. Just say yes or no. And Derek, you go first. Salami sandwich, mustard or mayonnaise?
Mustard.
Exactly.
Okay. Hot dog, mustard or ketchup? Derek?
Mustard.
Wow. Billy?
Well, he's civilized. Of course you put mustard on a hot dog. You put mustard on salami. Now, the Italians, my buddies, the Italians, will say, "You Irish, you don't know anything about food. You put mayonnaise on meatballs." What do you know about cold cuts? All you eat is bologna.
Okay, turkey, mustard or mayonnaise?
No doubt.
I'm not a fan of mayonnaise, so you won't hear mayonnaise for anything from me.
So you
really?
Nothing.
You would put mustard on turkey?
Absolutely. Mustard on everything. No mayo on nothing. a very minimal amount of mayo in my tuna. That would be it.
Is that because of the cholesterol, or you just don't like the taste?
I just never liked the taste ever. My mother liked mayo. My dad didn't, so I just was never into it.
Bologna, if mustard or mayonnaise?
Mustard.
I used to do this thing with bologna where you'd fry it in a pan, and the little centerpiece would pop up. Yeah.
Yep.
And then you fill it with actually I would use mustard and ketchup.
And a little pickle relish, maybe.
I didn't have pickle relish. Wasn't really a thing, but definitely pickles. We definitely.
When we grew up, I used to love fried bologna sandwiches.
Yeah.
And I used to love. My mother used to get unsliced bologna, so you can cut it as thick as you want it.
We had the same thing.
I would fry that up every day. Because, funds were limited when I was growing up. So we ate a lot of fried bologna sandwiches and fish sticks and pasta.
Yeah, well, I used to go to the corner deli, and I used to get a hero, a half a hero, half Italian bread with nothing but bologna. A bologna sandwich with mustard, it was a quarter.
Yeah.
That's what it was,
When I went to the store, if I got a hero, my father would make believe to change the station. I get hit upside the head because I wasted 25 cents on a hero and he couldn't bring any of it home.
That's interesting.
Well, my parents, of course, were old school because they came from the other side. They didn't come to America until they were 28 years old. And I grew up here. But I ate what was put in front of me. And, they cooked. In Ireland, they eat every part of the pig. Like, if they butcher a pig, every part of that pig gets eaten. Because that's the way, things were tough growing up in the generation before them. And, of course, they ate what the generation before them ate, So I ate pretty much what my grandparents ate. So my father loved pig's head, right? That was one of his favorite things. Pig's head and turnips, right? I swear to God, they take it. You go up to the pork store in the Bronx. They had an Irish neighborhood, and you could get pig's head, and you boiled it. Of course, we boiled everything because in Ireland, going back to my grandfather's day, they had an open hearth fire, and they really didn't have electric stoves or anything, so they boiled just about everything, and they'd boil it with turnips. Now, my job when I was a kid, my old man went to work, my mother worked. So no matter what, I could be in the middle of a stickball game. If I was 10 years old, 9 years old, my job was to run up the 5 flights of stairs in the tenement and put on the potatoes at 5 o'clock because the potatoes took the longest to cook. They took 40 minutes to boil them, and I had to put the potatoes on. So one day, one of the guys I was playing stickball with, a young kid, Tommy Monahan, is about 10 years old. I says, come on, take a ride. I got to go put on the potatoes. I said, I'll be right back. He goes, oh, you want to freaking potatoes. You always break up the game. I said, well, come with me. So we went up, and my old man had a pig's head on a big pot, right? So he said, what's in the pot? I said, pig's head. He says, what? I said, it's a pig's head. And I didn't think nothing of it, He says, pig's head? Who the hell eats pig's head? I said, yeah, take a look at it. I grabbed it by the ear, and of course the jaw was still And the kid ran out of the house. They're eating children up here. They're eating children. This guy's eating children. So my daughter, fast forward about my daughter Megan, who you've seen pictures of and you will meet. She was watching this show, Fear Factor or something, where they eat strange shit. Is it Fear Factor? They give you money if you're willing to eat strange shit or do crazy things or whatever. So she was watching it with a bunch of her girlfriends, and they asked her, they give you $10,000 if you would eat blood pudding. Now, blood pudding, the Irish, they cut a sheep's throat, and they take the blood from a sheep, and they mix it with all kinds of spices, and they put it into a sausage. It looks like a black sausage, right. Black pudding. Or they have it in white pudding, too, white pudding. And I grew up with that. I love it. It's delicious with eggs and Irish bacon, sausage. It's delicious.
It's called blood sausage, right?
Blood sausage,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
We call it blood pudding.
Okay.
And, I love it. You fry it up for breakfast. When I go to Ireland, I live on it. I love black pudding. So, of course, my daughter, being my daughter, in the aisle with me. She loves it too. So she's sitting there with the 3 girls. And they said, would you eat this for $15,000? And they show you the plate. She goes, I love that. I love that. But my point is, it depends on your culture. You know, like when I was in Asia, man, if it flies and it's not an airplane, they eat it.
Sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. If it has legs and it's not a table, they eat it. I mean, bugs. I was with a.
You got COVID-19.
Yeah, exactly. They eat, I mean, because it's protein. They eat bugs like, no problem. Like, they have these rice bugs, right? They sell them for a baht, which was a nickel at the time, a baht. And at the market, you'll see a woman with a vase, a big vase between her legs, and she's got a stick. And has these huge water bugs, and that's all they are. They call them rice bugs, but they're about 2.5-inch water bugs, and they're crawling out. And she just keeps knocking them back into with the stick. And I'm serious. And when they buy it for a baht, and they just take it, they tear the wings off and crunch. I mean, they eat them. That's it. That's protein.
It's all what you're getting used to.
It's what you're used to. Exactly right. It's what you grew up with. Yeah. Tripe. I bet you've eaten tripe.
Yeah, I don't like it.
But you've eaten it, right?
Yeah, I ate it when I was with George Lopez and Cheech Marine. We went
that
out,
right?
Yeah, we went out to play golf, and they said, "Let's go get some what's it called?"
Chitlins? Oh no, not Pozole. Is it Pozole?
No.
Menudo.
Menudo. Let's go get some menudo. I said, fine. So we went.
No idea what it was.
No idea what it was. And I don't like anything slimy in my mouth. Right? I don't. Anything raw seafood. I don't eat sushi. Anything like that. I took one mouth of that. That's right. I was killing it with chickpeas because now these guys are sopping it up. And it's George Lopez and Cheech. So what can I do? I had to eat it. I just swallowed it whole. I took it, swallowed it, and chewing the chickpeas. God, it was awful.
You were eating it like it was a pill. You were just swallowing it whole.
Yeah, and I'm trying to keep a straight face. This is good, isn't it? Great, good.
Oh man, when I was in Thailand, I used to go down to this guy's hut, and we used to smoke pot together. And this kid Sid, he ran all the Thais in the dining hall. That was his job. But he wanted to learn how to speak English because it was good for him, and I wanted to learn how to speak Thai. So I'd go down to his house, we'd smoke pot, drink whiskey, and we'd teach each other languages. And his wife was always trying to do the right thing. So his wife would come out, and I'm talking about his house was like a lean-to. That's pretty much what it was, a lean-to.
Right.
With a wooden table. And his wife was trying to be hospitable. And of course, I don't want to offend him. And she'd come out with about 4 or 5 dishes, and I'd say, what's this here, Sid? He'd say, mwah, mwah, number one. Maybe America have, maybe America no have. And I say, what is it, Sid? He says, can swim and can climb trees and have 1,000 legs. I said, no, I don't want to hear it. I'm out on that, Sid. What's this here? Mwah, mwah, number one. Maybe America have, maybe America no. I said, well, what is this? Kai dum. I says, Kai dum, what is that? Egg, we take egg. I said, an egg. Yeah, it's an egg. He says, yeah, we take egg, we bury in ground for 1 year, and then we dig up and become black. Black egg. Mwah! Number one. No, I'm out on the black egg. It was always like that, Well, I say, what about this, Sid? What about this? He'd go, moo. Moo. I said, it's a cow. I said, a cow. Yeah, I'll have some of that. He goes, no cow. Have 1,000 legs that can swim.
Well, I
always eat whatever grew.
Yeah, if you try to explain blood sausage to him, what do you think his
exactly. A tripe. The Italians eat tripe.
What is tripe?
It's sheep's stomach.
Correct.
It's the stomach from a sheep.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's tough as hell. It's really like the Irish. The Italians make it with a red sauce. I've never had an Italian style, but I've talked with old school Italians, and they've eaten it, and they eat it with a red sauce. The Irish, of course, we boil it, and they boil it at a low temperature for 4 days. I swear to God, in milk for 4 days. They boil it. They put onions and potatoes in there. My father used to eat it for breakfast.
You who?
My father.
Or your father?
My father, yeah.
Yeah.
Your mother and your father.
Your mother ate your father?
Yeah, my father used to eat it for breakfast. Potatoes, onions, and tripe. Now, I've eaten it because he used to make me eat it. And it's all right. I mean, I can eat it. Spare ribs. America, everybody loves spare ribs. The Irish, they call it bodice. And a bodice is like a corset, right? That's what it is.
Sure.
And they take the bodice and they boil it for 3 or 4 days. And it falls off the bone, and it's delicious, but it's totally different than the spare ribs you're used to. Same meat, different preparation.
Yeah. Interesting. I was referring to that Abbott and Costello routine. Your mother ate your father?
Yeah, that's a great bit.
Yeah.
That's the horse racing routine.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what about that horse? Yeah, you got to bet on him. He's a mother. Wait a minute, he's a mother? Yeah, he's a mother. And of course, we feed him fodder. Wait a second. You feed the mother his fodder? The horse has got to eat his fodder. The horse eats the fodder. That's a great routine.
That's pretty good.
I'll tell you another story about
Eric's going, what the hell are these guys talking about?
I used to watch them. I watched those guys in the middle of the night. I wasn't much of a sleeper back then, even now. But I remember Abbott and Costello.
I'll give you another story. This is about the rice bugs. I'm about 20 years old, and I'm in Bangkok, and I pay for this girl for the evening, and I think it was about $5, you know. And I'm 20 years old. This is a 19-year-old knockout. I mean, long black hair, almost down to the crack of her ass, gorgeous body, young girl, pretty as hell. I think it was $7. Give it $7 for the evening, and I'm sitting down in the park, having a beer, and I'm smoking a joint. And it was just starting to get dark, and the lights came on in the park. And with this, a rice bug. I mean, this 2.5-inch water bug comes scurrying out from the bushes. And I'm new in Bangkok. I'm only there about 3 weeks. So I'm not hip to what these people, they eat anything that's protein. So I'm sitting there with this beautiful girl, and how incongruous this is. You know, it just doesn't make sense. She reaches down and she grabs the bug, and I said, wow, this is a gutsy chick, right? Like, I wouldn't touch that bloody thing, you know, unless I had a shovel, you know. And I'm watching her, and she takes it, and she tears the wings off. And I said, wow, man, this good-looking girl, but she's a bit of a sadist, you know. Then she rips the head off. I said, oh, this chick is... I ain't going to sleep with this chick. I'm keeping one eye open. This is a crazy girl, you know. She's liable to cut my head off. And then, I swear to God, she pops it in the mouth, and my eyes get as big as bicycle wheels. Like, what? And I hear that first crunch. And it sounds like an elephant just stepped on a giant potato chip, right? I mean, that was the cry. I went, whoa! I said, sweetheart, look, no offense. I think we're done for the evening. Like, you know, keep the money. Let's separate with a hearty handshake. You know, I don't want no kisses. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Because you couldn't see your Johnson going where that bug had just gone.
My mouth wasn't going to go anywhere near her mouth. I can tell you that. I mean, it was, you know, for a kid from the Bronx, it was like
Shocking.
It was an eye opener. You know, it's just. Everything was so different in Asia. So different.
What was your hourly rate? Do you remember?
My hourly rate or her hourly rate?
Yours.
I wasn't getting paid.
No, in the military. Do you remember?
What was I making? I think I was taking home about $170 a month. But when I got over to Asia,
$1 an hour, maybe.
Yeah, when I got over to Asia, they gave you combat pay, you know.
Right.
So I got a little bit more, but I didn't care. I was making a ton of money playing poker. I mean, I used to sit in the NCO club for 3 days after payday, and I'd rape everybody that came in the door because I was a good card player, and I had read books about how to play cards, and I used to play cards against guys that used to come in with they take the card out of what beats what, you know, and I said, sit down here, we'll teach you.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What's the difference between a good card player and a bad card player? Well, you were playing poker, right?
Yeah, patience. The realization that you can't. You don't play for fun. If you want to be a good card player, you can't play for fun, because if you play for fun, you want to play every hand. How a good card player is somebody who recognizes a bad hand as quickly as possible and drops out, so it doesn't cost them any money, and recognizes a good hand as quickly as possible and maximizes his winning.
Yeah. See, I was never a good card player because I was always going for the home run. If I had nothing and an ace, I would, just keep the ace or 4 cards instead of just dropping out.
You're the kind of guys I live for.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like look. It's math is a pure science. So you know that with bookmaking as well.
Yeah.
It's a pure science. You can't beat 10%. So
Except
you have to know something about odds. Like if you see an inside straight,
yeah.
well, the odds of hitting an inside straight are 15-1. So what you got to do is you say 15-1. Is there 15 times the amount of money in that pot? Suppose somebody bets $5. Well, you got to say, is there $75 in that pot? Am I getting the correct odds to go for an inside straight? No, so you throw it away. You got to know what the odds of a flush are. What's the odds of catching a straight? And you go and you play accordingly, you know. And I tell you something about stud poker: you never call a bet in stud poker. You either raise or you fold. It's an aggressive game. You play aggressive. But I was good at it because, in them days, poker wasn't a craze yet. And I read I'd go to a library, read every book they had on poker, and maybe there was 5 books.
And you retained it.
Yes. I mean, even if you only learned one thing,
yeah,
it was worth it because maybe the book cost $5, and if you want a pot for $400, great. But nowadays, you can walk into a bookstore, there's 2,000 books on poker.
Yeah. It's like watching the Queen's Gambit and then searching for Bobby Fischer. In both of those movies, they read voluminously. They read everything. Yes. They read everything, but more important, they retained it and they processed it in a way that made them good chess players. I could read it and not retain a thing.
Because you're not interested in it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's the thing.
If you were fixated on it, like you told me the other day we were on the phone, and you said when you lectured in colleges, you'd talk for 20 minutes and then let them ask you questions for 40 minutes. And what happens is they'd ask you a question and you'd riff on it because it would trigger something in your memory that you knew, but you wouldn't have brought up normally. Well, because you know your subject.
Yes, and often I hadn't thought of it in 20 years, and I could talk about 30 minutes for something I hadn't thought of in 20 years.
Because you knew your subject.
Yeah.
My girlfriend used to have a thing when she was an educator, and she said the worst thing in the world is to walk into a classroom and a professor puts up PowerPoints on a projector, and then he proceeds to read the PowerPoints. She calls it death by PowerPoint. Yeah. I mean, the PowerPoints are there. Yeah. I can take notes and write the PowerPoints. Tell me about what you got to say, right? Lecture.
Right.
Too often it's just they put it up. I notice every now and then I'll watch CNBC and Rachel Maddow comes on. I used to like her, but she beats you to death with the same sentence. She say, and this is what they did. And this is what they did. And you know what they did? This is what they did. I said, I'm not an idiot,
Rachel Maddow for me moving forward.
Right.
Do what?
You ruined Rachel Maddow for me moving forward. Yeah.
But listen, sometimes she reads word for word, and this is what was said in the courtroom. Yeah. Well, I don't need that.
Well,
you know what I mean?
You have to realize how difficult it is to fill 5 hours a week with new stuff.
I could talk 5 hours a day about soap. The problem is shutting up, not talking.
Well, the problem with you is when you talk about bets, why would anybody ever bet with you?
I don't have no idea why anybody would ever listen to me. I
Because
have no idea.
you're now below 500 on our football picks again.
Again, back to below 500. And of course, the guru, what is it, 9-4 or 10-4?
10-4.
10-4. That's, Frank, what's really phenomenal about this, and this is a good lesson for anybody out there. I pay attention to the lines. I pay attention to a certain game I'm trying to hone in on, and I'm not 500. We're throwing games at you, and you're picking and you're 10-4, which goes to show you nobody knows nothing. I mean, you're 10-4. It's great. Take a bow.
Yeah, what I do is different from you in that I have some coaching instincts. So if a team that Derek picks, if I know something about that team, I will use that coaching knowledge to help me make my selection, and then I would look at the line, and then I would, So I think there's some sort of strategy. I think I probably could pick more winners than losers using that formula.
Well,
But
what I think is interesting about it is the last two games that I gave you were pretty difficult to pick, and you still pick winners.
yeah, well, I use that
Yeah.
same sort of coaching philosophy.
Yeah.
That said, the minute I put money down,
Yeah,
because
I'm the
that
same
would
way.
that would phase me because I can't do anything. Billy's now looking up the lines for the week.
Yeah, you know what? I had forgotten to bring up the lines, so I'm just going to put them up real quick because
Yeah,
I know
because
we're going to need a game.
I got
It's
the
like,
lines if you
Let me ask you a question, though, before I do that. Do you think the fact that you're picking one game and they're throwing one game at you has something to do with the fact that you're not looking at the whole board? You think that helps?
well, that's
no,
certainly
I think that so far I've been lucky that you guys have thrown me games, with the exception of a couple games where I can work this formula that I have. I can put it to use. There are other games that I have no idea and have gone the other way completely. So I think just picking one game has helped me instead of picking a multitude of games.
Wait a minute. We hear, ladies and gentlemen, that there is a formula, and you're
No,
10
no.
and you're 10-4. Here we go.
Instincts.
Well, it's a pretty damn good instinct. I guarantee you can look at all the coaches handicapped as you want. There ain't nobody 10-4 for the year. I guarantee
Yeah, exactly. So
And you know what? Even the smart money, the bookmakers. I mean, not just the bookmakers, the guys that we both know. I guess I can mention Billy's name on this because we're not connected right now, right?
Do it.
Okay. But even the guys that are banned in Vegas, and there's a couple that are banned in Vegas, they say college basketball, college football, they can get an edge. But with the pros, it's very, very difficult. They won't bet a lot of money on pro football because the lines are so precise that they really can't get the edge they want to get.
interesting.
So that makes the 10-4 all the more remarkable, really.
Okay. Well, who do you like this week?
Well, I'm going to take a favorite for a change. Tennessee's coming off a loss. They need the game. They're playing Houston, at Houston. They opened up at 4.5. They're all the way up to 7. I'm going to lay the points, take Tennessee -7. I took them last week. They let me down. I'm going to take them again, and this time as a favorite. Tennessee over Houston, at Houston, -7.
That goes against my sort of coaching instinct.
Never mind, I'm changing my game.
You should.
I'll take it back.
Because I'll never take a team game on the road 2 weeks in a row in a short week.
Well, if the Guru says no good, I'm going to pick another one.
So now, what do you got for me?
Huh. Well, we should make a note that Frank is opposite your pick for next week. Okay, so all right, here we go. We have New Orleans against Carolina. and New Orleans at -6.5, and they're playing in Carolina, I think. Yes.
Yes, Carolina.
Okay, so I'm going to pick New Orleans, uh, but I have my doubts because now my coaching instinct could be that New Orleans may rest their quarterback and go with a backup quarterback, so that'll affect the spread. But I'm going to pick New Orleans. But I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina won. But I'll pick New Orleans and lay the 6.5 points or whatever it will be tomorrow.
Look at Billy. He was tuned in. I think he's dropping money on this one.
Send it in. The guru speaks. I got to tell you a story. You say about coaching instincts. Well, I'm in a firehouse one day with my buddy Blinky, right? And the two of us are sitting there. And there's this one guy, Jimmy Ferry. Now, Jimmy is a football fanatic. I mean, he's a fanatic. The guy studies everything. He studies lines. He studies the players. So we were just talking sports. And this is back when the Houston Astros were playing. And we couldn't remember Cesar Cedeno, the center fielder for the Houston Astros. Couldn't remember his name for some reason. We just couldn't think of it. So Jimmy comes walking into the kitchen. I said, yes, Jimmy. Jimmy will know. I said, Jimmy, who's the center on Houston? So he tells us the offensive center for the Houston Oilers, right? And I look at Blink. I said, who the fuck knows the center for the Houston Oilers, right? This is crazy. That guy couldn't pick a win. He couldn't pick his nose to find a winner, but yet he knew everything. So it goes to show you, maybe instincts is good because statistics and knowing anything, you still ain't beating that 10%.
You betcha.
And if anything is an illustration of that, it's the year that I had this year compared to your year. And they're throwing games at you. So,
well, like I said, there's no money riding on it, so it's easy to pick them with there's no money riding on it. That's for sure.
Well, I would say, okay, so we're about an hour, a little bit over an hour in, but we need to really talk about, we need to give at least talk about 2020 a bit outside of COVID. So can you guys give me maybe your top 3 happy highlights from 2020, or things that you thought went well, or whatever you want to title it?
All right. You want to go first, or do you want me to go first? Because I got mine. So
you got 3. Pop them out, brother.
The stock market for one. Stock market cracking 30,000. That could be a good thing. That would be number 2, I think.
Okay.
Number 3 would be the introduction of the Zoom into our lexicon and the way to our doing business. Because I had an interview in May at Netflix. And Netflix is about an hour and 15 minutes from where I live. So I would drive an hour and 15 minutes, have to drive an hour and 15 minutes back, have the interview, and that would be 3.5 hours of my day would be gone. I got on a Zoom call. I looked everybody in the eye for 45 minutes to an hour. And when the Zoom call was over, it was done. And that's a big difference in the year. And then the number 1 highlight of the year was the birth of my granddaughter.
Yes.
Good. I'm glad you brought that in as a personal thing, because I haven't thought in general about 3 good things about 2020, but personally, my daughter opened up a successful business. I'm happy about that. I'm happy that everybody in my family so far has weathered the storm. They're all healthy. And actually, believe it or not, I'm grateful for the fact that even though I was isolated for the last year and a half, I was isolated with my wife, and I found out that I'm a lucky guy. So for that, I'm grateful.
How about you, Derek?
I think the probably the biggest thing for me is getting my kids home for an extended period of time. My son and his girlfriend, as a matter of fact, they spent 5 months with us at the beginning of COVID, which would never have happened in the past, So that was great to really get to know her and get to spend time with my now adult son, and see the man he's become. I mean, also see him in action via Zoom calls and work. So that's pretty cool. And also, my daughter spent a considerable amount of time at home as well because school kicked them out for some time. So that has been great. My wife and I work together, so we're together pretty much 24 hours a day anyway. So there's really no change there. I think if you want to really consider what's happened in 2020 as far as what COVID has exposed, for me, I think it's sort of awakened people to the political landscape and making people a little more involved in the future of the country. I think is also important. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
I want to reflect on what you guys said, and a lot of it is personal, which is a good thing, I think, because you get introspective when you're quarantined. You have no choice. You really got to start looking into yourself. It's almost like being a runner. Frank, you used to be a runner. When you run, your mind you're forced to be alone with yourself for an hour and a half a day or an hour and 20 minutes a day. You get introspective. Well, the quarantine has made a lot of people look into their own lives, But I want to lighten it up just one more thing because I've forgotten about, and it relates to two things we talked about. One is the difference in food, and the other thing is the South. And I want to ask Derek. Derek, are you a fan of grits?
I hate grits.
I love them.
You love them. He hates them.
Do you know why?
No, why?
I had them too many times.
Yeah. Well, that makes.
Is that right?
Yeah, just about every day of my life.
I feel like that with rum and coke. I used to mainline rum and coke, Cuba Libras. One time I went to the Madison Square Garden for the Holiday Festival basketball tournament. We were going to see Providence and Ernie DiGregorio play, a little white guy, but a great guard. And I got drunk. And we were standing up, me and my friend Pete Colabella, we were sitting on the upper deck. And we had ringside seat. We were watching. We could look down on the court, and I was like hung over the balcony, and I had so many rum and cokes that in the middle of the game, all I can remember hearing was "Basket by Di Gregorio, basket by Di Gregorio." After one of those baskets by Di Gregorio, I puked over the balcony onto the
Oh.
down below. Pete grabbed me and we just changed seats quickly.
Oh yeah.
So
The people down below must have loved you.
yeah, I never drank another rum and coke in my life.
Wow.
Rum and coke. The problem is it's all sugar. There's so much rum. Rum has got more sugar in it than any other kind of booze, and now you're mixing it with coke, so the hangovers are horrific.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you my grit story real quick. I was out drinking in South Carolina again, back in Charleston. First time I ever seen grits, Bronx kid. And I'm drinking with this guy. He must have been 6'5", about 280 pounds. His name was Jerry Hughes from Jacksonville, oddly enough, Jacksonville, Florida. And we're tying on a good load. Now I'm walloped. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. And the best thing you can do when you're drunk, besides drinking water, is get a good greasy breakfast, So we hit the diner. And I ordered 2 eggs over easy with bacon and everything and toast, and sitting there trying to drink some coffee. And she serves me the eggs, and I see the eggs moving across the top of the thing. I'm kind of drunk, and I says, "Hey, my eggs are moving. What's going on?" And she says, "Then there's grits. That's grits." I look at Jerry. I said, "The fuck is grits?" He goes, "Try them. They're delicious. You'll love them." So I taste a bit of it. Now this guy is, like I said, he's monster, big guy. And I taste like, oh shit, man! These things are horrible. These are awful. How do you guys eat this shit? And he looks at me real serious. He says, "That's all we had to eat after you fucking Yankees burnt all our crops." I said, "These things ain't that bad, really." I said, "Put a little salt and pepper on them. They're okay,
A little butter, a lot of butter.
A lot of butter. Yeah, but if you put butter and salt and pepper on it, that's what they taste like. Butter and salt and pepper.
Well,
that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Tastes
so
like.
also, one thing that was noteworthy was the publishing of our book.
Yes.
Yes.
It's talk, and it's still selling pretty well.
bellowing now. Now they're not clamoring anymore. They're bellowing for it.
Congratulations, fellas.
No,
That's
it's selling
amazing.
well, and the podcast is going well. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. You know, if nothing else, we're having a lot of fun, the three of us. So,
Well, we'll
I
continue.
think that resonates to the public as well. They can see you having a good time, and it's impossible to pretend you're having a good time. So, I mean, it's obvious that we're having a good time, and that's a good thing.
Well, we'll continue to have good fun on Wednesday next week.
And we have a guest.
Yes, our guest will be Hans Sheen.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I said I can't wait for that guest.
Yeah, because he and Billy and I are all. He's a natural born bodybuilder. He's a 60-year-old bodybuilder who took up bodybuilding at the age of 54, and he channeled all that excess energy he had from being an alcoholic into being a world-class bodybuilder. So
That's remarkable. So here's a guy who took a compulsion that was bad for him and turned it into a positive addiction.
Yep, and he's going to
Weightlifting.
have some tips from our audience of how to lose the after COVID, after holiday 15 pounds as well. So,
And everybody's got that for New Year's resolution. Everybody wants to get in shape after New Year's. So it's perfect timing to have hands on.
Any chance he's going to get you guys into bodybuilding?
I mean, why would I want to ruin perfection, Derek? Take a look at this body of mine. What are you kidding? You don't fool with perfection, Derek. You know,
all right,
something's perfect.
let's sign off for this week. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Wednesday
Yes,
it is.
Wednesday it is. New time, new date.
New date, new
Mick,
time.
the Mook, and a mic.
Mick, a Mook, and a mic it is. Bye, everybody.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you next week.